Hello, my name is Blade, and I am here to talk to you today about my original screenplay, Glimmer. So, I have written a 100% original screenplay titled Glimmer, and I need just a little bit of financial help to bring her to life and hopefully send her off into the world to a screen near you, if you will. So, allow me to introduce myself and talk about the project and see if you would be kind enough to consider financially or just spreading the word to support the project. So, first things first, hi, my name is Blade. I am a small filmmaker from the Central Valley in California, and obviously, if you couldn't tell from the way I look, I am a queer filmmaker as well as I like to appear in drag. I got my start in kind of a quirky way. I originally was streaming on the platform Twitch, where I would host digital drag shows with casts of other people that eventually evolved into just doing solo projects that were, I guess you could say, like performance art pieces, where it was just me making elaborate music videos that eventually turned into full on 30 to hour long pieces that had narrative and storyline, and that's what really, I wouldn't say introduced me to my love of filmmaking, but kind of brought me to the understanding that this is my passion, if you will. 'Cause ever since I was young, I have loved film, and I even liked making films. Like when I was little, I used to get this like really small little camcorder that my grandmother bought me, and I would make these little horror films about ghosts with like fishing line, and I would even burn them on a little DVD on the computer. So, I mean, I guess I've always loved film, but that experience is kind of what brought me back around to like, wow, this is what I really enjoy doing, and this is kind of what I want to do with my life if possible, and I think this is what I was meant to do. So cut to now, where I have since left the platform Twitch as well as the stream team that I used to be a part of. I'm really, grateful for that time, but that obviously was just not the place I need to be in to do what I want to do. So now on YouTube, I make film essays and other film related content like reviews, and I plan to get into even doing like DVD, physical media collection videos. But this is the place where I also put out my film related work because I have made some performance art films. So in comes Glimmer. I wanted to write a screenplay that was in my wheelhouse. I felt like if I was going to like sit down and really want to make I guess you could say serious film effort, I felt it would be smart to make something in my wheelhouse. So it is a completely original story, but there's just a little touch of like drag, like performance art in the story. But that's definitely not what the movie is. Like it's an actual story with a narrative. Act one, act two, act three. Like it's an actual legitimate screenplay. Not to say that performance art films aren't legitimate, but I just mean it is a new thing. It's original, and I just wanted to make sure that if I was gonna do this, at least give myself a fair shot and start somewhere that is familiar yet new. So, the story of Glimmer, I'm just going to give a general idea of what the plot is as to not spoil it for when it actually comes to light, but it is essentially about a young aspiring performance artist, I should say, who is a little bit delusional. She's maybe not the most talented person in the world, but she has this dream and she really wants to go for it. So, in this film, we essentially watch like the prototype of her her performance art. This character, Glimmer, her stage name, puts on a one woman show, and the entirety of the runtime like is the one woman show. Now I know what you're thinking. Like, that could possibly be very boring. I mean, what's going to be interesting about just watching this one woman show? Well, as I said, Glimmer is a bit delusional. Her grasp on reality is not 100% intact. So, without giving away any spoilers, we very much watch her descend into madness that leads to an ending that I think is really gripping and shocking. I mean, it's not. I think the way I wrote it, you definitely see it coming, but just not in the way that you'd expect. So I would classify Glimmer as a horror. It's a little psychological. I really want to play with perspective. The way I wrote the screenplay is very much we see half into what's actually in reality going on in this performance and in this space, but we also see what she thinks is going on because those the two things are very much on polar opposites of reality. And I think there's even a little bit of comedy to it. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like a horror comedy, but there's something about the way that I wrote her and the uncomfortability that gets built during this performance that definitely leans into comedy, and I think it does it in a really fun way. So, why should you support this project? Well, the first thing I want to get out of the way is I'm not some little tiny director who just wants to like prove themselves. Like, this is not my first project. This is my first time that I've really like buckled down and been like, let's write a completely original screenplay and let's, actually try to send it off in to the film world. But this is not my first rodeo. I have directed three what I am calling performance art films. One's Blood on the Carpet, Lacuna, and A Portrait of Healing, which I actually just released a month ago, last month in April. And, so it's not my first rodeo. I've sat down and I've told a story before. I've gone behind a camera. I've done the editing. I've done the sound. I do my own like costuming and makeup and everything. And I'm going to intercut different looks at the things I've made before. I've also made a about 5 minute horror short as well. So I'm not asking you to blindly support somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. What's different this time is, the things I've already explained, but also I'm just at a place in my life now where I can actually create something like this, like a full-fledged film, as opposed to my performance art stuff. Not to say that not to devalue those films, but there is a little bit of a difference between those films and this. They don't. I'm not performing to music. Um, so I'm in a point in my life now where I can dedicate the time and the energy to do this, and I think I'm also ready because I've already proved myself through all these things that I've done before. So I'm hoping that you'll see that this is not me being like, I want to be a director and like please like support my dream blindly. I think I've already done the work to prove my vision and my creativity and the ability to not only put pen to paper but paper to screen. So, if you were to contribute to the film financially, what would it be going towards? Essentially, I'm not gonna lie, Glimmer is not a very high budget project. I'm sure I'm only asking for $650. Now you might be saying, $650 is not a lot of money, which you're right, but in terms of film, that's not a very big budget. This is a very low budget project just because it's one location. It's pretty much like one actor performer and like there is some other side characters, but the majority of the screen time is with Glimmer the character. So in that nature it's low budget. So what the money I'm asking for would be going towards is just help with original music, to be able to pay for getting it formatted for screen. I think I'm opting to pay for festival submission fees myself because I don't know if it's entirely fair of me to ask anybody for help with that, but um, just all around help for me to pay for the props and just for me to get everything that I need to bring it to life on screen. I'm 100% fine putting in the money myself, but if I'm going to be candid, I am a college student and I work, a minimum wage job in California, so I just don't have all the money in the world to feed my ambition. And I don't think it's anybody, I don't think I like deserve, like, give me your money. It's not the energy I'm coming to this tour with. I just think if you would like to help, it would be appreciated. The last comment I want to make is that I completely understand the current climate of things. So I know that not a lot of people have disposable income to throw at something like this. So if you can't financially support it, I 100% understand. I just ask that, if young queer artists are people that you want to support, maybe consider, just hitting the share button. The share button is free. I'm just a young guy who has these dreams, and I think I've proven my ability, and I'm trying to make it real. So any support is appreciated, especially if you can, if it's within your means to provide even $5. Like I really would appreciate that, and your money will not go to waste. I feel very passionately about this story, and I'm ready to tell it, and with that money I can make it become a reality. So, if you watch this whole video, I want to say thank you for hearing me out. The site that I have chosen to crowdfund is Indiegogo. Just with my research that I did on a lot of things, I felt that was the best fit for my purposes and for this project. So, that being said, underneath this YouTube video, there will be a link to the Indiegogo page for Glimmer. And if you're watching this on TikTok, you can also find the link in my TikTok bio. If you so happen to be watching this like months later, or like after a certain amount of time, you might have to go to the YouTube channel to find the link, but that's where you can find the information to support the project. I am eternally grateful for all the support I've been given up until this point, and even if you can't financially contribute, I completely understand, but any way you can support this is much, much appreciated. I just feel grateful that I'm in a position to even be able to think about doing something like this and it being taken seriously. The fact that anybody has seen any of my work is just like wild to me, and I don't like to feel like I'm pulling on this card, but queer people are going through a pretty rough time right now, and I also think sometimes we aren't taken as seriously in certain spaces, even though we're people who contribute a lot to the world of art. So if you would like to support a small queer artist, consider that person being me. But if not, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Just throwing that out there. I'm not the type to ask for anything, so the decision to even do this was on it. Like I mulled over it for a long time, but I figured at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to just put it out there. So thank you so much, and I hope that you will be able to see Glimmer sometime in the near future. Thank you.